In the year 39 AD, inside the imperial palace on Rome's Palatine Hill, a celebration is underway. Senators are here in their finest robes, their wives on their arms. Music drifts through marble corridors. Wine is everywhere. The mood is supposed to be joyful. Then the emperor walks in. Gaius Julius Caesar Augustus Germanicus, better known as Caligula, raises a hand and points at a senator's wife. "Tonight she is mine," he says. "This isn't a request, it's an order." Nobody moves. The senator can't refuse. His wife can't refuse. In a system where the man holding power is the law, disobedience doesn't just mean punishment. It means extinction. And what happened next? While the party continued downstairs, pretending nothing had changed, was later described in fragments of letters found in 1962 in the Vatican archives. Senators wrote to relatives abroad, begging them never to bring their families to Rome. Because Caligula wasn't just crazy in the way movies like to sell. He was worse. A man who understood that absolute power means no taboo can stop you. No moral line. No divine law. If you're untouchable, you can test how far the world will bend before it breaks. And for 4 years, from 37 to 41 AD, he tested it. He turned the empire into a personal laboratory of humiliation and fear. Even Suetonius, the Roman historian who later wrote about him, hid behind coded language for certain acts. People were afraid to put the full truth into plain words. But some records survived anyway. Censored notes, cracked wax tablets, senatorial letters that escaped the flames. The question isn't whether you can handle the truth. The question is whether you're ready to see what happens when one man has unlimited authority and absolutely no conscience. So let's go back into that palace. Caligula has entered the room, and nobody knows who he'll choose next. Act 1. The imperial brothel. Caligula took part of the imperial palace and turned it into a brothel, but not for common citizens. This was a trap for the highest families in Rome. According to Suetonius, Caligula sent official invitations to senatorial households. The message looked harmless: a banquet at the palace, a night of celebration. But when the couples arrived, the men were separated from the women. Wives and daughters were led into private chambers, there to be forced into prostitution for anyone the emperor designated. Husbands and fathers waited outside the doors. They could hear what was happening. They could not go in. They could not protest. To protest was to accuse the emperor of dishonor. Accusing the emperor meant treason, and treason meant the execution of your entire household. One letter found in Florence in 1978, written by Senator Lucius Vitellius, describes the night his 23-year-old wife was taken. He writes that he heard her voice through the wall. "I prayed to the gods for deafness," he says. He wasn't praying for rescue. He was praying not to hear. When she came back at dawn, he says they couldn't look at each other. Something inside both of them had died in that room. And then Caligula smiled over breakfast, as if nothing at all had happened. Here's what makes it even colder. Caligula kept accounts. A wax tablet preserved in the British Museum, dated to 39 AD, lists noble women by name, the number of clients they were forced to serve, and the money they earned. Yes, he charged money, and it went straight into the imperial treasury. This wasn't about lust. It was a demonstration. Caligula wanted to prove he could take the most respected women in Rome, reduce them to commodities, and make their husbands stand there in silence. If he could do that, then he could do anything. Act 2. Incest as a political stage show. Caligula had three sisters: Julia Agrippina, Julia Drusilla, and Julia Livilla. Multiple historians agree he slept with all three. But the shocking part isn't only that it happened, it's that he didn't hide it. He performed it. At banquets, in official settings, Caligula would order Drusilla, his favorite, to recline beside him not as a sibling, but as a wife. Cassius Dio describes dinners where Caligula treated her openly like a husband would. Everyone watched. No one looked away. Because looking away meant disapproval, and disapproval meant death. Modern scholars think he did this strategically. In Rome, incest was a social horror, but among the gods it was normal. Jupiter married his sister Juno. The Olympians kept bloodlines pure. So when Caligula practiced incest in public, he wasn't just indulging himself. He was declaring, "I am not human. I am a god." And by forcing senators to smile and applaud, he was forcing them to accept that claim. When Drusilla died in 38 AD, probably from fever, Caligula deified her officially. He built temples for her and ordered Rome to worship her as a goddess. Senatorial records say he visited those temples at night and performed marriage rituals with her statue, as if she were still alive. A Roman philosopher, in a letter whose author's name was later scratched out, wrote, "The emperor is no longer bound by mortality. He makes love with marble, believing it to be flesh. We have lost not only a sane ruler, but our ability to tell emperor from God." You have to imagine the room after nights like that. Old men who had commanded legions now sitting stiffly at the emperor's table, laughing on cue, hands shaking under their sleeves. Women returning to their homes like ghosts. Everyone understanding the same thing. Rome's ancient rules, the ones that had held the Republic together for centuries, were now whatever Caligula said they were that morning. And once a ruler proves he can erase the difference between sacred and profane, between family and property, between man and God, the next step is to turn that power into sport. And that brings us to what he did next. Because once he had made senators watch him shatter their families and then applaud him while he claimed godhood, he moved on to a new kind of entertainment. Act 3. The game of gladiators. Caligula didn't just want obedience. He wanted to watch people break. So he created a private entertainment for his banquets, something designed not for random cruelty, but for maximum psychological damage. According to diary fragments recovered near Pompeii in 1951, Caligula selected his targets carefully. He chose the most devoted wives in Rome, the women known for strict virtue, the ones praised publicly for loyalty, the ones whose names were practically synonymous with chastity. The point was never to pick someone already surrounded by scandal. The point was to destroy the image of purity itself. Then he chose the gladiators, not the handsome crowd favorites, not the celebrated champions. He picked the brutal ones, condemned criminals, scarred slaves, men still stinking of the arena. A banquet would be underway. Senators reclining on couches, trying to look relaxed while fear crawled under their skin. Then Caligula would give the order. A noble woman would be dragged into the center of the room. A gladiator would be brought straight from combat, unwashed, still streaked with blood and sweat. And the emperor would smile and say, "Entertain us." There was no illusion of consent, no pretense of romance. This was a command, like ordering a servant to pour wine. The woman had to obey. Her husband had to watch. Her family had to watch. And at the end, after the humiliation was complete, everyone in the room had to applaud. Because not applauding meant you were insulting the emperor, and insulting the emperor meant treason. One senator, Gaius Calpurnius Piso, the same man who would later lead a conspiracy against Caligula, wrote a letter that was intercepted and preserved. "I watched my wife destroyed before my eyes," he said. "I cannot avenge her without condemning my children to death. So I smile, I clap, and I die a little more each day." Then he added something terrifyingly quiet. "But one day, the emperor will learn that even dead men can still hold a dagger." When Piso's conspiracy failed, he was executed. His wife was executed. His children were sold into slavery, and his letter was filed in the imperial records like a trophy or a warning. Caligula didn't just want to shame individuals. He wanted to teach the Senate a lesson. Your honor is mine. Your household is mine. Your virtue survives only at my pleasure. Act 4. The Emperor Who Married Men. Caligula reserved a different sort of destruction for powerful men. There's an old rule in tyrannies. Don't just kill your rivals. Make them know they're helpless before you erase them. Caligula took that rule and sharpened it into theater. Suetonius records that Caligula married at least 5 men during his reign. Among them were high-ranking Romans, including a consul named Lucius Vitellius and a popular actor called Menester. These weren't harmless jokes. These were official public ceremonies with veils, dowries, and legal wording.